come on into this Ready to Love, a special edition, and we are going to be doing three things. We're going to be doing the exit interview for Natasha that happened several months ago that I never watched it. We're going to be looking at this apology that Morgan issued for what she did on the show this past Friday to Natasha. And then we're also going to be doing a recap on the on Kamisha's YouTube channel. I think her station is called Kamisha Reviews. The Kamisha Reviews a YouTube channel because she did an exclusive interview with Natasha there. So really what we're looking at the before interview, which I looked at the one she did with Crystal XO, and I looked at the after interview, the one she did with Kamisha Reviews, because you know what, people, I'm going to admit it. I never watched her exit interview when she first got kicked off the show because, you know, she was on there for a hot minute. So I was like, I didn't even bother watching her exit interview. You guys know how I love watching the exit interviews, but I didn't even watch hers. But when my subscriber dropped in there, I think it was K Brown. Thank you, K Brown, for saying, you know what, I got to go over and watch the interview on Kamisha Reviews. I said, well, I just can't watch the after interview. I got to know a little bit more about Natasha before I watch this interview now. And I hadn't seen enough of her on the actual show. So I said, well, let me go on back here and do a little bit of homework. I already knew a lot about or enough about what I've seen with Morgan. I knew enough about Tony. I said, let me see what I think about Natasha. And it's perfect. You know, stuff is filmed. Stuff is taped. So I was able to go back and I was able to look at the interview that she did with Crystal XO, which was, I think that was an hour, and then the Kamisha Reviews was another hour and a half. So it took me a minute, people. It took me a minute in between all the other stuff I'm trying to do around my house, and spring is here. So like I've been telling y'all, I've been in the weeds, really literally in the weeds. It's so many weeds out here in California. But first of all, before I get into the before interview and the exit interview, I want to read this apology that Morgan issued. I don't know if some of you've seen it. You probably have. If you haven't, I'm going to put it up right now. Let me get it. Okay. And I want to read it together because I got a few thoughts on this too. Okay. So what she says is this was on Instagram. Okay. The way I spoke about another woman on national TV was uncalled for, distasteful, and unacceptable. And quite frankly, I'm ashamed. I allowed this show, this process, people, my emotions, all these factors to get in the way of the person I know myself to be. I don't know who that woman on your TV screen was on Friday, but I assure you that wasn't me. Natasha, I can only imagine what my harsh words may have done to you, and for that I am truly sorry. You didn't deserve that from me. In due time, you'll discover that I have paid my karma in full, and that I am taking the necessary steps to ensure this will never happen again. God, I am sorry. Please forgive me. I know I look nothing like the woman of God you've called me to be. I promise to get back in my closet and try again. Natasha, I'm truly sorry for the hurt and pain that I have caused you. I pray that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. There it is, people. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the positive, okay, because I don't want to be completely negative. I'm going to start off with the positive and say thank you, Morgan, for issuing a public apology and not just doing one privately behind the scenes and apologizing to her privately, because you kind of did shame her publicly. So once you do a public shame, you have to do a public apology. So good for her for issuing a public apology. I guess we'll be waiting on Tony's as well because he owes one too. So I guess maybe we'll be waiting on his apology. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it's, as they say, the check is in the mail. But that is a but, people. You know there's a but. But I want to say this. I have a couple kind of a little bit of a problem with Morgan's apology, people. I'm sorry. I'm going to take issue with a couple things. First of all, when she talks about I'm going back into my closet, I'm assuming she's talking about the prayer closet, people. Am I right? I'm assuming she's talking about the closet you go in for prayer, and she's talking about her prayer closet where she goes and she talks to the Lord. So when she says, I promise to get back in my closet and try again. Good. So this is what I want Morgan to do when she goes back into that prayer closet. One of the things that I take issue with on this apology is I don't know who that woman on your TV screen was on Friday, but I assure you that wasn't me. That's one of the problems I take. And then the other one is I allowed this show, this process, people, my emotions, all these factors to get in the way of the person I know myself to be. Okay, so I never propose that I know Morgan a lot because, of course, I only see her on TV. I only see 2 minutes of her each time throughout these episodes. So I'm not her best friend. I'm not her good friend. I don't know her. All I can go off of is what I know. And what I know is when she says, I don't know who that woman on your TV screen was on Friday, I say, I do. I know her. This goes back to what I said about Morgan last week on my review recap of the show. When Morgan was running around telling Tony he needed counseling, one of the things I said about Morgan is Morgan doesn't have the ability to see her own flaws, right? She's really good at seeing that Tony needed counseling, which he does. Tony needs improvement, which he does. She told Blake that he was a malignant cancer. She has said things sometimes about Suanne, okay? She has put nair in the hair of another man and really didn't have much remorse for it. She kind of almost low-key bragged about it. And what I was saying is, what does Morgan need to do? And so when I see Morgan say she doesn't recognize the woman on TV, I say I do. Because one of the things I picked up on very, very early on Morgan in episode maybe 1 or 2 was that she was vengeful. She's vengeful. She has a revenge problem. It's when I said, I guess she doesn't read the Bible because she's over here. I thought the Bible said the vengeance is the Lord. But what Morgan does is no, vengeance is hers. And what we saw, what she did with Natasha, was she was exacting vengeance. Not only on Tony, which is who it was also directed towards, she was also acting it upon Natasha. She was getting revenge for what Tony did to her and how she felt Natasha played a role, even though that's not Natasha's problem, what your problems with Tony, but it's how she felt. And so what she did was she exacted revenge on Tony and she exacted revenge on Natasha. Now, for her to say, I allowed this show, this process, my emotions, that's not who I am. Actually, it is who she is. Because I've seen enough of Morgan to know that she's vengeful. Nair in the hair is vengeful. She said it. She wanted to go out with a bang when she put nair in that man's head. She wanted to go out with a bang. She has told Tony on more than one occasion, I'll cut you. Revenge, vengeful. Okay, punishment. Deliberate acts of trying to hurt someone because they've hurt you. This is a pattern. So what I don't want to see in the apology for Morgan, which is in this apology, is acting as if it's an isolated incident, that it's incidental. Okay? When you are trying to solve problems in the world with yourself, whatever case, you got to ask yourself 2 things. Is this incidental, which means it's an accident? I don't normally do this. I'm sorry. It's just these particular circumstances that this occurred. Or is this systemic, which means this is actually how I behave in situations? Morgan, when she says this show, this process, my emotions, and also that, what else did she say? It's not the woman. She's acting as if it's incidental, which means this isn't how I normally am. This was just these particular set of circumstances, and I got a little bit out of control, and so I'm sorry. Now, what that's going to do is one is it actually diminishes the apology, and it also what it does is it doesn't allow her to grow. One of the things I also talk about is if you do not take full accountability for what you do, you cannot grow, period. And if Morgan wants to say that the only reason why she did what she did to Natasha and said what she said was because of these particular circumstances, the show, the pressure, the person she was dealing with, it absolves her of doing real hard change, because what she can say is, I just need to never be around this situation. And then when I'm around this situation, then I won't do this again. Well, that's not the case with Morgan, because we've seen her in several different situations and she's vengeful. Her problem isn't Tony. Her problem isn't this show. Her problem isn't the process. The problem isn't Natasha. The problem is her. She is vengeful. She has a part of her personality that likes to get revenge on people. She did it to Blake when she felt Blake said something to her or harmed her. As she said in the moment, you can't hurt me. You can't hurt me. Obviously he did, girl, because you sitting up here trying to exact revenge on him. When she went hard in on Blake, that was revenge. This issue with Tony and Natasha talking about what they did together is revenge. The nair and the hair is revenge. So she really could have left all that out about, quite frankly, I'm ashamed and it's this show. She really should have just said, I got a problem with vengefulness. And it showed again in this situation. I need to fix this not only for this situation, I need to fix it because it's a problem in my life, period. And I'm going to tell you the difference between that. That's like, I don't know if you guys have ever had an alcoholic family member or alcoholic, might have been into somebody you were in a relationship with. And one of the things that alcoholics do when they have bad, and alcoholism is an addiction. Okay, it is an addiction. And it is addiction because if you look up the word addiction, addiction means even though you know things have negative consequences, you still do them. Because alcoholics, what actually happens to them a lot of times is they get drunk, they drink too much, and then the next day they're actually remorseful. They're remorseful because now they're seeing the after effects of when they drank. Maybe they drank and they got violent. Maybe they drank and got in a fight. Maybe they drank and got violent. Maybe they drank and did something that was, irresponsible. Now, what Morgan is doing is her addiction is vengefulness. That's her addiction. She's vengeful. She doesn't know how to stay away from it. When she sees an opportunity to exact revenge, she doesn't know how to look away. It's one of the reasons I told you I'm putting a little money down, not all my money. I'm putting a little money down on this last episode of Ready Love that Morgan is going to exact revenge on Tony. I'm putting a little money down on it because she has an addiction towards vengefulness. And I'm saying, is Morgan going to miss her big opportunity on national TV to exact revenge on Tony for doing what he's done to her this whole season? Is she going to take this last moment on camera to come out with some big act and exact revenge on Tony? I'm putting a little bit money down on it because you know what? She's addicted to vengefulness. And like I said, the thing about alcoholics is you ever talk to one and you talk to them and say, a girl or boy, whatever man, woman, whatever, you was toe up last night and you were so drunk. You were saying a lot of stuff that was foul, out of pocket. You were rude, you were whatever. And a lot of times what an alcoholic would say is they'll say, I'm sorry, but you know what? I was just celebrating because it was a birthday. That's why I got drunk, because it was a birthday and it was a celebration and I just wanted to have a good time. But then you see him again later on and you think, oh, okay, well, it was just a birthday. That's why you got drunk and that's why you were saying all that mean stuff. And then next thing you know, you see him at a wedding and then they're, oh, well, it was a wedding. I was at a wedding and so, I was celebrating. I was so happy my cousin got married. I was turning up. I was having a good time and that's why I acted like that. Next thing you know, every time they got an excuse for getting drunk. Oh, it was a funeral. I was sad. Oh, I was depressed. They have an occasion every time for getting drunk and then apologizing. That's Morgan. That's what this apology sounds like to me. It sounds like a person apologizing and not paying attention to that this isn't incidental. This isn't just germane to this one issue, Morgan. You have a problem with vengefulness. So just like an alcoholic needs to go to AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, and stand up and say, I am an alcoholic, and not give it any qualifiers and say it's because of a process, or if it's because of people, or it's because of a show. You need to stand up, Morgan, and say, I have a problem with vengefulness, period. And the apology needs to say, I am sorry that my addiction to vengefulness was exacted upon you, period. Don't blame the show. Don't blame the process. Don't blame Natasha. Don't blame Tony. Don't blame any of this, because she finds more than enough occasions to be vengeful. That's what I'm going to say about that apology. Now, before I move on to this Kamisha Reviews, which I'm going to call the after interview, like I said, I had to go back and listen to Natasha from the beginning because I wanted to know who she was before this incident, because I already knew there was a possibility that she might show up differently in the Kamisha Reviews. But I wanted to see, did she even allude to this whole Tony thing in the beginning of her exit interview, or was it all hush-hush in the interview? I wanted to see if there was any indication that all this stuff with Tony was going on behind the scenes. And guess what? I saw no signs of it. In fact, I saw the opposite. There was a particular point in time in the interview where Crystal XO asked Natasha, who were your top three? I know you got voted off the first day, which none of us like. I really wish Natasha could have stayed on the show a lot longer. I wish they wouldn't eliminate people on the first day. But anyway, she asked her, who were your top three? Who were you interested in? And you know what Natasha said? I really wasn't attracted to anybody. That's what she said. She didn't mention Tony. She didn't say she was attracted to Tony. Now I'm remembering this because I remember Tony. What Tony said was Natasha slipped me her number or threw her number at me. So I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. She didn't even mention that she was attracted to Tony. Then the only person she kind of mentioned she was attracted to was Andre. Okay, a light feather Andre. Andre, let me tell you, Andre, I had a lot of people interested in him, but I think it's because of the money that Andre was running around talking about people. Because she even mentions in the Crystal XO interview that Andre was running around on the first day of the mixer talking about he was on Forbes magazine. Forbes, a magazine. This is what Andre leads with when he meets you, is the fact that he was on Forbes magazine. But then Natasha said she asked him a few more questions, and he said he was on Forbes magazine during COVID. That don't count. Does it count if you are on Forbes magazine during COVID? That doesn't count. Because most of the businesses were shut down. So if you're on Forbes magazine for a business, I don't know, is that really good competition, people, when most of the businesses are already shut down? But anyway, he running around telling her he was on Forbes magazine. So maybe she said she was interested in Andre. She thought he was cute. But then she said she realized that Andre, he needed a woman that was a little bit more submissive than she was. Because there came a point in time when they were sitting there, were talking, and Andre was about to set his drink down on the table, but the table was wobbly. So Natasha picked up his drink so it wouldn't spill, and she was holding his drink and her drink, and they were talking, and Andre expected her to hold both their drinks while they had a conversation, and she was like, I'm not holding your drink. So she realized then that she and Andre probably weren't a good match, because he wants a woman that's a bit more submissive and I guess caters to him and is going to hold his drink while he has a conversation. I'm telling you, the more I learn about the Andre, the more I'm like, why people? Because he's got a little money. Women, we got to do better. We got to pick men for different reasons by the mere fact that he has maybe a little money. But anyway, the point I'm making about Natasha is that when she was mentioning who she might have had an interest in at the actual episode where she was there, she doesn't even mention Tony. She doesn't even bring up his name at all, as if he was one of the ones that she was attracted to. And remember, at this point in time, She obviously was having some sort of interaction with him on this exit interview, because Tony said that she gave him his number. She doesn't mention any of that. This is the before Natasha. She doesn't mention any of that. They also got into this little discussion a little bit about the whole alpha male, female thing, which you guys know I can't stand these terms, but they did talk about it a little bit. She said that she didn't see herself as an alpha female at all. And she also said that she's a person where she says she has a more traditional values when it comes to dating. She likes the men to hunt, likes the men to chase. But then like she just said, she's not a submissive girl. So she says she's not submissive, but she also likes the man to chase, the man to be the leader, and to hunt. And so this goes back to what type of men do, now that we know that she and Tony end up hooking up, I could see why she might have even had any type of involvement with Tony at all, because Tony's a strong hunter. And I've told people this about women: be careful with strong hunters. One of the things I'm seeing when I watch a lot of these dating shows there are some women who really love men who are real assertive and strong hunters. They really do. And what Natasha said is she doesn't really like to date. She isn't a girl that likes to date. She doesn't, first conversations, she feels awkward in them. Sometimes she doesn't feel natural when meeting a guy. She doesn't feel natural when dating. She doesn't do that. So she likes a man who's a little bit more assertive. And a lot of women, sometimes there's different reasons why people like assertive men, but there is a group of women that I can understand about Natasha, where she's saying she likes a man who's assertive because she actually doesn't like doing these things. Okay, she actually doesn't like doing these. She doesn't like having to always be the one that's the more assertive one. Now, the thing about an assertive man, people have to be really careful about this, because men are assertive for different reasons. Okay. Men are assertive for different reasons, and you have to know where that assertiveness comes from. There's a part of assertiveness from some men, like the Tonys of the world, that one of the reasons why they're so good at it, and one of the reasons why they are that way, is because what I say is they have an insatiable habit. Imagine an animal that just is hungry all the time. If you're hungry all the time, you have to learn how to hunt really well, because you're constantly hungry. You're constantly hungry. So you have to learn how to chase. You have to learn how to hunt. You have to learn how to take down your prey. You have to learn what to say to women, how to say to women, how to say it, when to say it. You have to learn how to appeal to their ears very, very quickly, because you have an insatiable habit. Typically, you may be working 2 and 3 different women at a time. And you can't be spending 2 and 3 and 4 months on one woman and investing that much time in her, because that's not efficient. You have to be efficient when you are a hunter and you have an insatiable habit. You have to learn how to take down your prey fast. So when you have women like Natasha who love an assertive man and who don't like to have a long process because it makes them uncomfortable, these women become prey for the Tonys of the world. They're easy prey for them. They're easy prey to come along and in a lot of situations take advantage of them. I'm going to get into this conversation with Kamisha Reviews, because I don't want to also give the opinion that I think that she was taken advantage of. Because when she starts talking about the Kamisha Reviews about how she looked at the situation, I actually agree with her. And I actually said it in my first video. Okay, I said it in my first video. I don't have no problem with what Natasha did. She a grown woman. She could do whatever she wants to do. And that's why I had a problem with what Morgan was saying about her, calling her a low-hanging fruit and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, I had more respect for Natasha than I had for Morgan, because what I said was, at least Natasha wasn't trying to make Tony a husband and a father of her babies. That's the problem. I looked at Morgan and was like, I don't know. I think Natasha was a bit more smart than you. But the only reason I'm discussing what Morgan said about how she likes to date, what type of men she likes, I'm only saying this in the context because originally when I heard that she and Tony even hooked up, because I didn't know anything about Natasha, I couldn't even understand, like, why would she even be attracted to him? I was probably like a lot of people, like, why would she even go out with him? Why would she be attracted to him? And what I realize now is that here she was, she really was, I could see, knowing who she tells me she is now, how she would have been attracted to Tony, because Tony's a strong hunter. It's what a lot of women like in men like Tony, that he's assertive. He's a strong hunter. There were several other women on the show who said that. So when I heard her say that she likes men to be the more assertive one, that she doesn't like to take on that role, that's when it clicked in my head was, okay, I could see how they could hook up. I could see how they could hook up now that I know this about Natasha, and now that she's told me this about herself. So what could happen to people like Natasha in the world? Because this strong, aggressive man, assertive man, will always be the one to the door first. Women like a Natasha, or anyone else who likes an assertive man, I don't even say Natasha anymore, let's just say women, then you'll open the door for the Tonys first, only because he's at the door first. You won't look to the guy at the back of the line who actually may be the better guy, but because he wasn't quick to the door, by the time he gets to the front door, you've already chosen Tony. So a lot of these women, they'll find themselves getting hurt a lot in relationships because they're really almost like, it's almost like whatever the first assertive man that comes to me, that's the one I'm going to say yes to. And then next thing you know, the people who are slow, like the Anthonys of the world, they actually never get a chance, because by the time they get up to your door and knocking on your door, you look at the people and say, I'm sorry, I'm all sold out. You are sold out because you have already given everything away to that other guy who's at the door first. Women need to stop saying, I like assertive men, because it makes them not have to do any work. It is, sometimes it's a form of laziness. They want to say it's because they're submissive or they're, dainty. Sometimes it's a form of laziness. It's almost like you have a job and you have to interview for the job, but instead of you interviewing a lot of candidates, you just want to take the person who tells you everything you want to hear, but you don't take the time to do background checks on them and do everything else. So next thing you know, you just hire them and you find out later they're a bad hire. Well, you didn't do all your checks, because really what it was is you really don't like this process. You don't like the dating process. You don't like vetting people. You don't like doing that. And then as a result, you tend to pick too soon, and next thing you know, you didn't even give the Anthonys of the world a chance because they were too slow. They were too slow. One of the things Natasha talked about in this before interview with Crystal XO was how much she didn't like Blake either, because Blake was always giving her a lot of questions. Now, that's what we knew about Blake. Blake loves to ask questions. He loves to investigate. Okay, he loves to do it a little bit too much, but a lot of people need to take a few pages out Blake's book. Natasha said there was a point in time where she was like, I couldn't even get a question in because Blake was firing off the questions. He's way on this end. You have some people over here don't ask any questions, and then you have people on this other end like Blake. He asks too many questions and doesn't let other people even ask any questions of him. Middle ground. This is where everybody needs to get to. People who aren't asking enough questions, you need to get here. Blake, who's way over here asking too many, he needs to come here. Allow women to ask you questions. Get used to him answering some questions. This stuff is a learning experience for a lot of people, because I did want to know, how did we get here? How did we even get to this conversation where Natasha even wanted to go out with Tony? I did want to know, and I think I have my answers. Natasha is an attorney, and she talks about how busy she is. She's got a lot of work. That's another reason why you want to just get through this real fast if you're dating. If you're a person who's real busy and you got a lot of stuff going on, the last thing you want to do is be doing a full-on investigative vetting of a man, because you're tired. You got so many other things to do. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to do your full-on investigation. You just want to just skip all over this and just get to the good part. Let's just get to the good part. But then later on, you get bit in the ass because you didn't do your due diligence up front. So you think you're saving time because you're not asking the right questions. You're not doing the most of the investigation. But then on the back end, you realize, dang, I really would have been better off asking the questions up front, because then I would have saved myself this headache. I would have saved myself this entanglement. I would have saved myself even getting in this mess, in period, had I done a little bit more work up front. Like I said, this is not about Natasha. I don't want to really keep it about Natasha, because this goes on in the dating world all the time, all the time. Because like all of us, even though we may have had a few red flags with Tony in the beginning, we've also been able to see, 13 episodes of him. And so I'm going to move on to now the review, talking about what she talked about with the Kamisha reviews. And one of the things she said was the person we see that she saw on TV with Tony is not the person she said that she was dating off camera. Come to find out, they were dating pretty much the whole time. So here's the timeline. Let's go over the timeline, because I think that's really, really important too. So what Natasha says on Kamisha Reviews is that at the day of the event of the mixer, the very first day, and she got booted off, she and Tony, she says they exchanged numbers. Not none of this where Tony, she threw her number at Tony. She said they exchanged numbers. Well, you know what? How do we exchange? Nowadays, ain't nobody write their number down on a piece of paper and slipping it to you. More than likely, I don't know, they're not allowed to have their phones no, they are allowed to have their phones. More than likely, you either typed your number in his phone or you texted him or whatever. So you kind of get each other's numbers instantaneously. So it's no longer like the old days where a woman just gives her number to a man. Nowadays, if I'm giving you my number, I got yours too. It's typically an exchange. So she said it was an exchange. It wasn't as if whatever. And she said when she got booted off, by then, Tony had already texted her by the time she got to her car and saying, I wasn't one of the people that voted you off, so I just want to know that I didn't vote you off, okay? And that was when they first started talking. Now, at first I was thinking, well, why did you guys continue talking if Tony was still on the show? Because remember, Tommy said that was a violation of the rules. Tommy even told Tony that you violated my rules in saying that you're not allowed to date someone that's been on the show. Natasha says that when she left, the producers told her, well, at least you're now able to talk to anyone and you can go out on dates the way you want to. I don't know what the truth is, be honest with you. Is the truth that they sign a contract that says after someone gets booted off the show, you can no longer date them while they're on the show? Or is the truth is after you get booted off the show, you can still date people who are on the show? I don't know. I know there are a lot of you that know the rules more intricately. What are the rules? Because Natasha is saying is she was free to still date Tony even though he was on the show. So I guess she was still dating him knowing that of course he's on the show, so he's dating other people. And she's dating him, getting to know him outside of the process. She isn't getting to know him the way we're getting to know him on the show. I thought about that for a little while and I said, well, I remember when Andre was kicked off the show. Okay, we knew Andre was off the show. And we found out that Jeffrey was still talking to Andre when he was off the show. He was only off for a week or 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. He was gone. But he said, and everyone else said, even Cynthia said it, so did Jeffrey. They were talking to Andre when he was off the show. And in fact, the reason why Andre didn't even like Mercedes was because Mercedes wasn't calling him when he was off the show. And at this time, no one even knew that Andre was coming back. What I wonder is, did Cynthia and Jeffrey, by still talking to him, encourage him to come back on the show? Did Andre quit the show for some reason and then decide to come back? Because I really never did believe that whole COVID story. I never did believe it 100%. So the fact of the matter is, when at first I was thinking, well, why would Natasha still date Tony off the show? I had to think, well, you know what? It has been done before. Andre was dating or talking to or whatever off the show. Now, if you want to slice and dice talking, dating, and all that, I don't know. That's kind of getting really particular. But there obviously aren't any rules where it says you can't have any contact with a person once they're off the show, but you're still on the show. That's not true. So anyway, we find out that she and Tony, Natasha and Tony, were still seeing each other and dating all the way up until a week before Morgan says this on episode 13. So that means that Tony and Natasha were dating pretty much the majority of the show, even when he was also still dating Marcia while she was on the show, and also still dating Morgan while she was on the show. And he and Natasha were dating off scene. Natasha says that they had a bad breakup. She said that she had stopped talking to Tony even before this incident happened. Even before Morgan is in Tony's face talking about her, she had already stopped talking to Tony, because what she said is Tony had already ghosted her. So she probably started to see the real stripes of Tony, just like we did. So we saw Tony the Tiger on the show for the 13 weeks. And here is Natasha off scene, behind the scenes, seeing Tony as well. So she ends up getting burned by Tony even a week before Morgan confronts Tony on their whole little entanglement. She said she wasn't even talking to Tony. Now, here's the other thing about the timeline. This so-called reunion, which now I'm just thinking, this ain't even going to be no real reunion, because the reunion was filmed, that we learned on Sue-Ann's exit interview. The reunion was filmed before any of these people even saw an episode. Not one episode. In previous seasons, the reunion was taped maybe around episode 5. So the people got to see maybe episodes 1 through 5, the reunion's taped. That was how it went. This season, the reunion was taped before any of the cast saw any of the episodes. So the reunion with Natasha there was taped before Natasha even saw this scene with Morgan spilling all her business on national TV. So what she said was, prior to the show actually airing, she got a text message from Morgan apologizing to her. She started getting heads up from Morgan. She got some information. I think she said she got some from Tony about what was about to go down. Because remember, she didn't have any of this at the reunion. So even at the reunion, I think Morgan apologized to her as well at the reunion. She apologized to Natasha about what she said. But remember, she apologized for what she said on camera and that Morgan knew was going to air. But Natasha didn't even get to see the scene. So Natasha's sitting over there like, you're apologizing to me, okay, but I haven't actually seen the scene. It wasn't until she saw the scene this past Friday that she realized how bad it was. So this timeline is very, very, very convoluted. Very, very convoluted. But one of the things Natasha pinpointed in her commission reviews was she didn't really want to get into the whole shaming her for what she did with Tony. And this is the part I do agree with her on. I don't think that she needs to be ashamed. I really don't think she needs to. She's a grown woman. You know, women are out here fighting for rights for their bodies, and this is what comes along with it. Okay, so if you want to fight for the right to have control over your body, and this is what Natasha wanted to do, I don't feel like she should be shamed for it. She's exercising her rights just like any other woman does. And I think what Natasha said is true. We can't keep shaming women and then giving men a pass. All right, we can't keep saying Natasha should be ashamed, and as Morgan saying she's low hanging fruit and trying to shame her, and then Tony's doing the same thing over here as well. They're both grown people. If this is the way that Natasha wants to run her dating life, she's an intelligent woman. She's not a child. She's not underage. She can do whatever she wants to do, and that's why I felt that. And that's why I felt that Morgan was completely out of pocket what she did. And that's why I know what Morgan did was all about vengefulness, which I told you is her underlying problem. Her underlying problem is vengefulness. Her problem isn't Natasha. It isn't Tony. It isn't this show. It isn't this process. It's Morgan's own vengefulness. She's vengeful. And she looks for openings in which to exact her revenge on people. And so what she did was she used this moment to exact some revenge on Tony and Natasha, and in the process, she tried to shame Natasha, and Natasha didn't deserve any of that shame. I don't agree with that, not at all. And I know Natasha got on the start talking about just because I'm an attorney, people talking about I should be a certain kind of way. I'm with Natasha on that. Nobody at your job thinks you a virgin. How many of you at your jobs people think you a virgin? I mean, I don't get any of that of why people would say that about Natasha. I don't get any of that. The only thing I'm going to say about this whole entanglement is what I say about women, period, is make sure you vet these men. Because people like Tony the Tiger, they have strong game, they have strong hunts, and it takes a while to figure it out for some women. Some women are quicker, they figure it out sooner. Some women need a little bit more time to figure it out. And it seems as if Morgan is finally figuring it out, but she got by Tony. And now we see that Natasha got ghosted by Tony as well. So in a lot of ways, he ghosted her too. More than likely, he may even ghost Morgan at the end of this show. We don't know. We haven't seen the end yet. Because Tony likes to acquire. Tony likes to hunt. And after Tony hunts you and acquires you, he disposes of you. That's what he likes to do. Tony sat on the show and told Morgan, and she didn't mean nothing to me. That's what he even said to that one, Natasha. Well, I know that. Everybody knows that. That's why you have to know what is systemic versus what is incidental. When you have a man who likes to hunt and likes to bed women and capture women, more than likely it's exactly what Tony said. The sex means nothing to them. Nothing. It's just another conquest. That's exactly it. It's no emotions tied up in it at all. Now, if you want to just smash and grab with that man, then go ahead and do it. But you better know what that man is doing, and better know that this is not going to be a love connection with that man. Because if you're thinking you're really making a love connection with him, then you are getting taken advantage of, because you're going in with a different mindset. But if you're going in the mindset of, well, you know what? He just wants to smash and grab, and that's all I want to do, then go at it. Have a good time. But don't be fooled by him. Don't be fooled by him. But Natasha, I don't think she too much accepted Tony's apology, because she was using that lawyer talk. She was like, Morgan did that with malice and intent. I was like, go ahead, Natasha, pull out them lawyer terms. A malice and intent. Shoot, malice, that gets you extra years and gets you extra punitive damages. When you do something with malice, let me tell you, they tack on the years and they tack on the money. She's saying she dodged a bullet because, you know what, good thing she was sent home early. She dodged a bullet. You dodged half a bullet. You dodged half a bullet because you still did get shot by Tony. Tony still didn't shoot you. He might have just shot you in the leg or the foot, but he didn't kill you. But Tony might have killed a lot of other women, but he didn't. But you got shot by him. You did get shot. You did get grazed by him a little bit, Natasha, but that's okay. You did get shot and grazed by Tony. You really, really did. Just that, which is another reason why Morgan shouldn't have really been going in Natasha, because, be honest with you, if you're going to talk about who's a victim of Tony, Morgan's a victim of Tony. Okay. And Natasha could have been a victim of Tony. You know what, to be honest with you, both could be, you could both see yourselves as victims of Tony, but I really don't see you victims of Tony, because, I mean, you know what? That's just like I don't see Natasha a victim. I don't see Morgan a victim. Y'all went into it feet first, head forward. Y'all knew what you was doing. So I don't really feel sorry or anything. You know what? Sure, Tony came out in the end and got the maybe he did get the upper hand. But y'all got in the ring with this man. Y'all got in the cage with the tiger. Don't you ever see the signs? Don't feed the wild animals. Don't touch the wild animals. Don't get too close. But then you all up on the cage, getting in the cage, rolling around with the tiger, and then running around talking about, man, I got bit by the tiger. People. So will I shame Natasha for what she did? No, I won't shame her. I won't shame her one bit. I won't shame her one bit. And will I say it was a foolish move to get involved with Tony? Well, it depends. If all she wanted to do was a smash and grab, then I say, well, maybe it wasn't a foolish move. Maybe he's good in bed. Maybe it was worth it. But if her intent was to actually form a relationship and be a relationship with a person, I would say, yeah, it was a bad decision, because that's not who he is. That's not what he does. I would say, yeah, it was a bad decision. It was a bad decision. But a bad decision doesn't mean that I attach shame to it. Lots of people make wrong decisions, but it doesn't mean shame should go along with it. You could be disappointed in your decision. You could say you wish you wouldn't have made that decision, but attaching shame to it is something completely different. There's a lot of mistakes I make in life that I say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, but I'm not ashamed. I don't feel like I should be shamed for it. Those are two different things. Morgan was trying to shame Natasha. That was what was wrong. She was trying to shame her, and that was because she was trying to exact revenge and have vengefulness with both her and Tony. That's two different things. But yeah, I found out that they had been dating all the way up until a week before this whole thing happened, and it happened on the real time when they were taping it. Even Natasha said that even when they got to the actual reunion, before she even heard about any of this, she wasn't even talking to Tony then, because like she said, he had already ghosted her. She was already mad at the way he handled things, but kind of probably what happened was what he said. He was over here doing this with Natasha, and he was over here doing this with Morgan as well. And looks like maybe the only person that really didn't get bit by the tiger was Marcia. Looks like Marcia didn't get too close to the tiger cage. She looked at it from a safe distance, 10 feet back, 15 feet back. She seems like the person who kind of knew what Tony was doing. And although she would look at the tiger and say, wow, look at that tiger, she didn't go up and pet the tiger. Because Tony kept trying to coax Marcia up to the cage. Remember all those dates Tony was having with Marcia, saying, you need to be more assertive. You need to come closer to me. You need to come closer up to this cage so I can touch you and get to you. Come to find out, he was enticing, and not only Morgan, he was enticing Marcia, and he was enticing Natasha too. People, women better wake up. Depending on what you want, you better wake up. If you're interested in marriage and babies and a family, stay away from the Tonys. Stay away from the Tonys. Natasha even said that she had gotten information, because remember, she's off the show, but she's probably still talking to some cast members that are on the show. So she even knew when she was dating a Tony at the time, that Tony, who he was dating on the show, because of course she's dating him off camera. She's got to know that he's dating women on camera. And she had found out while they were dating that his interest was Marcia, and it was also Morgan. So she's dating him full on knowledge that of course he's dating other people. That's why I'm saying I really don't necessarily feel sorry for Natasha. I don't feel like I should shame Natasha. I don't feel none of those things, because she knew that he was dating other people. So that's what I'm saying. If her intent was just to date him while he's dating multiple people, because she felt, well, if I was on the show, which she actually said this, she said she didn't look at it as any different. She didn't look at it as anything different, because I'm dating him off camera. I'm dating him with multiple women. If I were on camera, I would have been dating him with multiple women. So I didn't necessarily I didn't feel like it was anything different. Well, it is kind of different. I will differ with her on that, because when you're dating on the show, the multiple women, you have the ladies' lounge and you have the deliberation room, and you're able to hear everything else all the women are saying. That's one of the things that made this show different. Sure, these women have dated people in the past, and they were dating other men the men were dating other women at the same time. But the difference of the show was you were able to hear out of those women's mouths what that man was saying or doing with them. That's what made this situation more unique, this process unique. Typically, in the real world, this man like Tony could be dating a Marcia, a Morgan, and then a Natasha, but none of you women would be able to talk. What Natasha did was she went back to the real world, and that was dating a man, but being unable to talk to all the other women that were dating him and being able to hear what they were saying. So really it put Natasha at a disadvantage. She put herself at a disadvantage. She's saying, well, what was the difference? There is a difference, because the show was giving you an advantage of being able to hear what this man was saying to other women. And what Natasha did was she lost her advantage in this game, because she's dating him, but she doesn't get to hear everything going on in the lady lounge. She doesn't get to hear what these other women are doing. So what she does, she lost her own advantage. She gave away her own advantage. So like I said, do I shame her? No, I don't shame her. Was it a good strategy? No, it isn't a good strategy. Okay? It's not a good strategy. I can see both ways. I can see how she shouldn't be shamed, but I can also see how her strategy was a bad strategy. Unless all she was doing was trying to smash and grab, then her strategy was wrong. And by listening to her on Kamisha Reviews, when she said Tony ghosted her and then she became mad at him, that tells me that that was not her strategy to smash and grab. She had a different strategy, which means I say your strategy was bad, Natasha. It was a bad strategy. Everybody in this whole triangle entanglement has things that they need to work on. Natasha's strategy was bad. Tony is Tony the tiger. That's what he does. He devours women. He needs his own set of counseling. And Morgan over here is delusional because she doesn't take accountability for her parts of her personality that she needs to go to the prayer closet and pray about, and not just pray about it, or do something about it. Acts, what's the Bible verse? I can't even remember. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. That may not even be a Bible verse. Maybe it's just a saying out here, but faith without works is dead. Morgan can have faith. She can go to her prayer closet all she wants, but if she's not going to do something different, and she's not going to keep blaming on circumstances and processes and people, then you know what? She's going to be right back in that prayer closet again and again and again and again. But anyway, that's it, y'all. Thanks for listening to me. Drop your comments down below, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.